Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the preparations for emergency measures for energy, as getting away with a mild winter this year looks much less likely. If the measures end up being very disruptive, could give more of an opportunity to get more people to wonder why the Tories virtually halted our expansion of low carbon energy, which would not have been impacted by gas shortages or price rises at all. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So there's been a noticeable ramp up over the past few weeks from the shills for the fossil fuel companies to try and claim that net zero will cost more money and further impose on ordinary working families already struggling far too much. Oh, we have so much sympathy for the ordinary working families. Seems a ridiculously childish argument to make, quite apart from the fact net zero exists as a policy to literally save the human race from something close to a literal extinction event in the coming decades. But our out of control energy inflation problem is caused by fossil fuel sources of energy. It's not even like ordinary members of the public are unaware of this. It's been the government's favourite excuse to distract from the mess that their usual twin policies of Brexit and austerity have left us with. All this inflation, it's the fault of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, they say. But we had high inflation before their full-scale invasion. Yeah, but you're going to forget that because all I'm going to do is talk about Russia. Okay, fine. So how did that hit our energy prices? I'm glad you asked, because we ended up with disruption to gas supplies because Russia is a major producer and the price rocketed. Okay, so people are aware that it's the price of gas that has doubled their energy prices. And being honest, the only reason it hasn't trebled is because the government intervened to cap the cost of a unit of energy. Oh, but don't worry, because they're not raising this money from windfall profits, so we'll still be paying it in the form of higher taxes. And this provides a rare enough opportunity to challenge the supremacy of corporate interests over the good of society. You know, the shills have always tried to make out the argument that renewable energy is expensive and it won't meet our needs. It's too expensive and we can't get our energy from it anyway. Most people know very little about energy generation, so it sort of works. You know, they've forgotten everything from GCSE science by the time their generation starts voting in significant numbers. But here we have two things attacking the usual narrative. First, like I say, people are well aware that the current problem with energy inflation is not wind turbines, it's not solar, it's not wind, it's not, wind already, tidal or wave or something like that. No, it's gas. We need more renewable power. With some also being in favour of more nuclear fission power, but people see we need more renewable power. In fact, Sunak he was adopting quite a hard line against wind power, the old onshore wind power. Oh, no, I don't want that. The Tories have been very much against onshore wind power for quite a while. Well, he's now showing signs of backing down, as a lot of his own MPs can see that the position is nonsense. Either that or their voters do. It hardly matters. Politicians need to follow the priorities of their voters or they don't stay politicians for very long. So it seems clear that even key Tory voters are aware that we need more renewable energy. The second challenge to the usual narrative is that people are feeling real pain as a result of this. You know, the energy inflation, that's actually hurting people. It would be different if the government had moved to shelter us from the massive increase in costs. I mean, this is like the biggest fossil fuel shills, the Tories, actually harming their own paymasters. Because if they'd said to the oil and gas companies that any significant increase in their profits during a time of alleged shortage would be taken as a sign of profiteering and that the Chancellor would just nick the vast majority of those excess profits, could have shielded people from it. I mean, I made a similar suggestion the other day, just in general. A new tax, I suppose. Yeah, you know, I put forward my tax, the PTT, the piss takers tax. Any industry claiming that it has to increase its prices more than the target value of inflation, 2%, whilst at the same time making higher profits, can have the PTT applied to them. Because as far as I'm concerned, if an industry is going to say, sorry, we've got to increase our prices quite a lot to take account of various things, that's fine. I expect to see a drop in your profits then. The government could have used this money to cap the price of energy way below the current level, people, if they hadn't really noticed much of an increase in the cost of energy, then as far as they're concerned, they can read in the papers about gas shortages and price increase and all the rest of it. They wouldn't really care. If it doesn't affect them personally, they won't really care that much. So the public attitudes may not have hardened to this fossil fuel shilling. But people are really feeling the squeeze. There are people who have to sit in the dark of an evening, who have to rely on food that doesn't need much, if any, cooking because the cost of energy is simply too high. Even those who can maintain a fairly normal life, who have the income to manage, are still needed to be more mindful. They're still reducing energy consumption. A report at the weekend said that people on average are using 10% less energy than would be expected. This combination of the media and politicians all being quite frank that our problems are related to fossil fuels, and the people feeling the pain of our reliance on fossil fuels, that's a powerful motivator to think differently. Something's not working properly and you are suffering because of it, you are invested in wanting the problem fixed. And the pain hasn't even necessarily reached peak yet, because it seemed to me a couple of weeks ago the right-wing commentators were basically praying for a mild winter. If we have a mild winter, then the emergency plans won't need to come into effect. Given that one of these emergency plans is for 3-hour blackouts in the evenings of especially cold days, that would be a massive problem for them. Because those who can afford to consume a normal level of energy, suddenly being without lights, electric heating, television, or whatever other plug-in devices they have, that's going to be a problem. They'll have to talk to each other. And what are they going to talk about? Probably how they wish that the blackouts weren't needed. And if only we didn't have an energy system that relied on environmentally damaging fuels, which come mostly from countries who keep picking arguments with the rest of the world. And because it now looks likely that it's going to be very cold quite soon, those emergency plans are being advanced now. There are always emergency plans, of course, and we haven't really needed them. They're just contingencies, but now we're getting ready to potentially need them. The measures, if enacted, will disrupt people's normal energy usage in some form or other. Whether it's a nudge to get people to defer high power use to off-peak times or just turning off the juice altogether for 3 hours at a time. These are measures that will be noticed. So questions may be asked about how it came to this. If the more disruptive measures need to be deployed on a regular basis, then questions may be forcefully asked. Labour's Ed Miliband's already been annoying the fossil fuel brigade by telling people, wind energy costs like 9 times less than gas. Get more people seeing that and then realising that the government have spent 12 years artificially reducing our expansion of wind power. And they're still doing it now. What did they do? When they talked about in the last budget statement, we'll put a windfall tax. We'll put a windfall tax on renewable energy. What? Why don't you put it on fossil fuel energy? No. They need their profits. So the Tories continue to favour fossil fuels over renewable, low carbon sources of energy. And it might be the case that if more people start talking about this and becoming aware of it, it becomes politically impossible to deviate from net zero at all. Because even people who might not appreciate the scale of the climate emergency can still decide they'd rather not spend thousands of pounds extra on the cost of energy for no good reason. And hopefully the cost of our folly in relying too much on gas generation will be enough to get people to demand better. Hopefully we don't need the blackouts as well. Hopefully it still won't come to that, in fact. But with the winter potentially being fairly cold, the only way it looks like we're going to avert it is for people to carry on consciously reducing their energy consumption. But even that in itself, even if it means we do avoid the blackouts, which will surely be a big political problem for the government, that will still mean more people are being mindful of the fact that they cannot use energy in the way they used to be able to take for granted. And that's without considering the political fallout if the reports of lots of deaths from, say, elderly people freezing in their own homes. Still, I suppose if that does happen, Sunak will just go and eat some dingo's testicles on the telly and everyone will forgive him. But I do think there's a real chance to get a public shift of opinion here. Not before time. But I just don't see how the bewildering claim that net zero somehow costs us more can possibly stick. Even the most casual observer can see that it's fossil fuel screwing us over here and hitting their pockets very directly. You know, maybe 2023 can be the year of revelations. Brexit, energy production, capitalism gone mad, Tory malice in general, we'll see. But there's nothing like learning the hard way. And a lot of people have it hard right now. But there we are, those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.